Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the August 2020 version of the BIA Southern California Government Affairs meeting, the BIA Orange County, I should say. My name is Mike Recupero, and I host this meeting, and thank you so much for joining us today. We've got a great meeting for you today. We've got 4 candidates for different races in Orange County, in 2 cities, Santa Ana and Tustin, that are really important to a lot of our different members for different reasons. And so we thank you for joining us. Our format today is we'll have each of the candidates basically give us a 5-minute blurb about why they're running and how they can make things better in their cities, as well as talk about some of the issues that are important to you. If you'd like to ask any questions, please hit your Q&A button and type in a question, and it will come up. And we will try to get to as many questions as we can. And Steve Lamotte, do you have a preference as to whether people wait until the end of all 4 to ask questions, or do you want them to ask while each candidate is on?
No, I would definitely say send them if you have them, and we'll get to them either in the middle, have a conversation, or try to get them there towards the end. So if you have a question, send it over.
Great, thank you. Our first speaker is Ty Fawn from the city of Santa Ana in Ward number 1. Ty, welcome so much. We appreciate you coming in to speak with us.
Hi, everyone.
And you're on mute, I believe.
Nope, she's good.
Okay.
There you go.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm very excited to be here. As Mike said, my name is Ty Fan. I'm running for Santa Ana City Council in the newly districted Ward 1. So this is the first time in 150 years that the city of Santa Ana has been districted, which means that we can really target our races to different areas. In Ward 1, we were districted to settle a California Voting Rights Act lawsuit to give Asian Americans a voice on the dais. Currently, there are 4 candidates running in Ward 1. There's me. I'm the only Asian American running in that ward, which was specifically districted for us, 1 Caucasian and 2 Latinos. I am the only candidate who has, in fact, won this ward. I ran in the special recall election. It was a crazy whirlwind, 2.5 months election, and on May 19th, I won 54% of the vote in a 3-way race. So I know that come November, I can replicate that. We have our win number in hand. We know that we can achieve that very same result because we will fundraise like we did during the height of the pandemic. Our campaign, despite being a first-time campaign in May 19th, we raised the most money out of any other candidates, and we were able to get our message out. So a little bit about me. I grew up in Santa Ana. I was born near a refugee camp in Thailand. We're Vietnamese refugees, and we got to live the American dream. I was raised by mostly a single mom, and eventually got to be the first in my family to go to college, graduate from law school, and now I work at a local law firm, providing land use, planning advice, and advice to councils and planning commission. And I want to bring that experience to Santa Ana because I see that there's been terrible stagnation in our city. Things are not progressing, despite the fact that we have folks who say they want to move forward, they want to bring change. You go down Harbor, you go down North Bristol, you go down Main, and it feels like it hasn't changed in 20 years. So my 3 main priorities are: 1, housing development. As a millennial and a new homeowner, my husband and I were able to purchase a home last year because he's a veteran and we obtained a veteran's VA loan. It's really important that we build more housing that our residents can afford and enjoy. And that doesn't mean, all tiny little apartments, and it doesn't mean all single family. We need to have a good mix throughout the city. And there's a lot of space to do that. I think that there's appetite to do that. And we need someone on the dais who's going to push that. I am literally a card-carrying member of Orange County YIMBY because that's how committed I am to making sure that we have more development in the city. The second thing we really need to do is more economic development. And that means promoting small businesses, expanding, in my opinion, cannabis, because it's really an industry that can help in Santa Ana, because we're really the forefront of this kind of industry here. And the third thing is obviously also work with public safety. It is something that I care very much about, and investing in that and helping our communities build trust. So I know that we can win. We have a track record of winning. I'm here to promote the kind of things that BIA and others who are interested in housing and development of promoting, and I'm ready for all your questions.
Thank you very much, Ty. I don't think we have any questions in the crowd, but could you really talk to us about the difference between you who are running for your ward?
Sorry, you cut out. The difference between me running for my ward and
and some of your opponents. What are the big issues that separate you from some of your opponents?
Sure. The first issue is experience. I work in local government. My job is to give legal advice and counsel to commissioners, city staff, city officials on how to move projects forward. I'm the assistant city attorney for the cities of Duarte and Menifee, two very different politically, two very different geographically, and two very different cities when it comes to development. Duarte is all infill versus Menifee is expanding, probably one of the fastest growing cities in Southern California today with development. And my job is to make sure that we help promote and move those projects forward. So I have that experience. I use that as a planning commissioner, and I try to make sure that we are as friendly as possible with those issues. We have the vice chair of the planning commission who's also running, but she's never run for office before. And we have a first-time entrepreneur, local gentleman who's also running. Again, neither has he ever run before. And Thomas Gordon, who's run multiple times for mayor, for different seats, he's probably ran 3 or 4 times, never raising any money. So I have the experience to run a professional campaign to target voters. And the only one who can actually speak to the majority of voters in my district, because 1, I speak Vietnamese, and 2, I have a broad coalition of supporters. So that would be the difference between me and them.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Our next speaker is Mark Mclaughlin from Santa Ana, Ward number 3. Mark, welcome. I think you're on mute.
Okay, can you hear me now?
We can. Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. I was working before. Good afternoon. My name is Mark Mclaughlin, and I am running for City Council, Ward 3. Ward 3 has 5 people running in that campaign. We'll talk about that later. Let me give you a little background on myself, as well as Ty had mentioned, the redistricting occurred this past about a year ago, and essentially we now have 6 wards that are being they're ward-specific voting, which is a tremendous change rather than having citywide. And that was I think a drawback to a lot of people with respect to being able to run in certain areas because of the demographics and everything else. I have actually run for an office several times. I was elected as the trustee for Rancho Santiago Community College, and I basically was there for 4 years. I've run for Santa Ana Unified School District, and I've also currently now I'm running for City Council. With respect to my background, number 1 is I am currently the chair of the Planning Commission for Santa Ana, and just recently was nominated for a 4th term to chair the Planning Commission. I basically was unanimous support from all of our commissioners, Ty being one of them. Appreciate that. In the past, I've also been on what's known as the Historic Resource Commission, which is historic preservation in Milsac, and I've been the vice chair on that commission for a number of years. Involved in the community as a neighborhood leader, I've been involved with Floral Park, that's where I live, and I've been past president of the Floral Park Association. I've also been part of their historic designation committee, we're in the process of getting the neighborhood historically designated by the state of California and by the federal government. This is something that we've been working on for a number of years. There are other historic districts in Santa Ana. We just happen to be one that's considered to be historic, but really never had the actual designation. So we're working on that. The paperwork right now is up at SHPA, and it will go to the federal government soon. But with the pandemic situation, things have obviously been delayed. I've also been very involved in education, and that's one of the areas that I have a strong presence in. Besides being on being a trustee for Rancho Santiago Community College, I'm also vice president of the Santa Ana College Foundation, which supports scholarships and educational support for the students. With regards to Santa Ana Unified School District, I'm currently on the Superintendent's Advisory Committee, which is a community-based group that is helping to work out strategies that will make Santa Ana Unified a much better school district than it is today. And I've been on the Superintendent's Budget Allocation Committee for a number of years. And we've done quite a bit there trying to reduce the spending without impacting the student in the classroom. And we've done that very well. We've taken about $20–30 million out and had no impact. And as you know and can understand right now, the education system is kind of upside down when it comes to funding and everything else. I've also been co-chair of Measure G, which was a facilities bond that was brought into play around 2008. I was also on the Citizens Oversight Committee, and I was the chair of the Citizens Oversight Committee for that particular bond. As a member of Santa Ana Chamber of Commerce, I participate in RGAC. I participate also in our economic development, and I participate in the Community Involvement Council. All of these councils have different applications. One of the biggest ones is the economic development, and I'm very active through the education process and everything else. I'm very active in the economic development and workforce development. One thing I neglected to mention is I'm also president of a nonprofit which is called High School Inc., and that's a joint venture between Santa Ana Unified, the Santa Ana Chamber of Commerce, and the High School Inc. Foundation. And we're basically the financial arm. We have 6 academies that are located in Valley High School, which is one of the 6 high schools that Santa Ana has. And the 6 academies are based on, we have culinary, healthcare, automotive, new media, global business, and engineering. And these academies are basically there to provide the students career and college readiness. And we're one of the only schools in the county that actually offer that. So I'm very proud of that particular situation. I'm very proud about what we're doing as an organization. Looking at some of the goals that I believe we have to address when I become council. Definitely economic development is one of the key things, and workforce development. With the pandemic situation, double-digit unemployment, we're going to have to figure out ways to train and retrain our workforce, because the jobs that they currently, or the jobs that they had, may not come back. And so we're going to have to come up with ways in which we can take care of that and advance the training level of each and every one of those unemployed individuals at this point in time. Housing development, big topic. I think Santa Ana on a whole has done a decent job with housing development. I know, we met our RANA numbers from the past 5 years, and we're looking at the new RANA numbers. And I think the projects that we have in the pipeline are great. And I think if you look at the numbers, we're probably halfway there when we look at the numbers that are needed for the next RANA set of numbers. And I think we'll do very well in that respect. Ty brought up.
Mark, I have one.
What's that?
I have one question for you. I'm
Sure.
sorry to interrupt. We're almost out of time, but a question came up from Councilman Bucknam from the city of Mission Viejo, and that is, she's interested in knowing your opinion on public safety and specifically the funding of public safety and police services.
Okay, my position on I'm not looking at defunding public services, both fire and police. I think that what we do need to do, and I think we're moving in that direction, we have to look at the activities and the tasks that the fire and the police are doing at this point in time, I think that there's a lot of if you look at basic numbers, police have said, police business was about 80% police business and about 20% community. Now, when you look at the homeless situation and everything else, it's flipped. And I think what we need to do is we need to come up with services, social services, other kinds of services that can go out in the field and work with the people, the homeless, the drug addiction, the alcohol problems. We would work with that with service organizations, not with the police or fire. I think that's going to be a change, and I think that'll allow us to figure out where there is some opportunity, and if we have opportunity, use those dollars to be helping out our youth and some of the other needs that we have, parks and rec in the city, things that are going to help our students and everything else. Because right now, the other problem we have is with the pandemic situation, everybody's online, they're at home, they're not going out, the schools are not available to them, they don't have the recreation, and we really need to figure out how we can keep our students engaged.
Great.
I hope that
Mark,
answers the
thank you
question.
It does.
Mike,
Thank you very much. Yes, Steve.
if I can jump in, big issue last night. I think I was on the phone till 1 a.m., if I'm not mistaken, in Santa Ana last night for the city council meeting. I'll go into, extreme detail, I'm sure, after the end of this meeting. But big issue. And, I can almost call this panel, all four of you guys, the inclusionary zoning panel, because 2 years ago, massive fight in the city of Tustin. And to go towards inclusionary zoning, Santa Ana created an ad hoc committee to actually reduce that policy. So we have the city of Tustin increasing it, or creating one 2 years ago. We have the city of Santa Ana reducing it. You guys both voted to reduce it. So we do appreciate that. I'm sure everyone knows we wanted to go a little bit further. You guys were just a recommendation body. The city last night did go further and gave us a great policy. Now, the issue is clear. The fee was too high. Units were being approved left and right. I think roughly 3,000 plus units, yet no one was building. No one was building because it was too high. It was a pretty odd experience for you guys. I know at the Planning Commission, you got handed a very large policy with a lot of different interest groups involved in this. So since we're obviously going over time, I'm going to talk about this later, but if you guys wouldn't mind just giving sort of your take on this policy and then maybe clarifying too, we're not, no gotcha questions here, but there was a big push for a mandatory union labor language in this policy that, in my opinion, I was still unclear on. If you can clarify maybe that part of this policy, and then your experience just in approving that approving that policy recently. And we'll start with Ty, and then we'll go to Mark.
Yeah,
and then very briefly, please.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, the Planning Commission is a recommending body. I very much feel that as a planning commissioner, my job is to build a foundation for my council member to do the hard lifting, right? I think that when I was looking at this, as I mentioned, I deal with ordinances all the time. And we got this maybe a week before the meeting. And so there was a lot of confusion on probably 6 or 7 issues in the ordinance. And when I was looking at what everybody was saying, and the vibe that I was getting was, we want to continue. In my opinion, when we have a pandemic and we're trying to spur building right now, continuing is going to result in death by delay of this amendment. This is an opportunity for us to move the item forward and get the council on board to making these changes. If you listen to the meeting, you're going to remember that one of my opponents required Public Contracting Code 2603, which is the provision in the law that actually has the controlling language for skilled and trained workforce. But when you listen to some of the other commissioners, they were like, well, let's have some more studies. Let's continue this. Let's have more study sessions. And what would have happened, as it's happened before, is 3 months later, we still don't have a draft ordinance. And so my job was to really corral everybody, get all of their thoughts, and move it forward. Because the last thing that I wanted was to lose this opportunity to make a change for more development, because that's my number one goal in the city.
Awesome. Thank you. Mark.
Yeah, I think
really quick.
I think that Ty brings up a number of points. I mean, one of the things that really is a hang up is the fact that continuing this would not have done any justice to the whole process. You know, one of the things that I've done over the past 4 years is, as the chair, is to force our planning department to give us information ahead of time, to give us work studies, give us an outline of what we can expect. And as Ty mentioned, we had 7 days to get this very complex. The hydraulics within that ordinance were just incredible, and trying to get an understanding of that. So what we did, and you know, I listened to everybody on the commission and said, okay, now that you've given us all of your concepts and ideas, let's just put it together in a recommendation. And again, reinforcing the term recommendation, that, you know, we would put it in a recommendation and move it forward. Because frankly, we were reviewing an action taken by the city council. We did not participate in the ad hoc committee. We were second to that. So we just decided that this would be the best thing in everybody's interest. Move it forward, make it happen, let the council take on the heavy lifting, so to speak, because that's where it started and that's where it's going to end. And that was the recommendation and goal that I had. And I wanted to make sure that we got everything that we needed to get. I mean, and there was labor language in there. There's no doubt about that. But it was, you know, it was recommended by the different people on the dais. And so we wanted to make sure we included it in the process.
Mark, thank you very much.
By the way, congratulations, Steve, on that.
Thank you.
And you don't look bad for 1 o'clock in the morning.
Thank you very much, Mark. We appreciate that. Our next speaker is Ryan Gallagher from the city of Tustin, another city that we've had a long-standing interest in, and they've had some turnover in that town too in terms of their planning director. So Ryan, welcome. If you'd like to give us your thoughts on your campaign and how it's going, we'd appreciate it.
Sure. Well, first off, thank you, BIA, for allowing me to speak with you today. I think it's a really important organization, and I think the issues facing the city are not only important to us as residents, but I think they should be important to your members as well. So let me give you a quick lay of the land before I dive into my experience. You probably all know this already, but the city of Tustin doesn't have a great relationship with the business and development community. This is not a secret. And I think when you drive around the city, it becomes very clear what the repercussions of that are. We have the Tustin legacy with 500 plus acres still left undeveloped. We've had some really good projects come forward, but they've been far too slow. We've had the specific plan in place now for 20 years as of 2021. So the pace we're moving is too slow. We were caught off guard with AB 1486, and now we're struggling trying to figure out how to get back on track and deal with the repercussions of that. You drive down Red Hill. A lot of this sounds similar to actually what Ty was saying in Santa Ana. We drive down Red Hill and you just see vacant properties, you see undeveloped areas, you see opportunity. You go down Old Town, it's a ghost town when you compare it to our neighbor city of Orange. But that's what we could be. Instead, we have vacant lots again and just endless opportunity. And Steve brought up a good point about the impacts of an inclusionary housing. That was passed in 2018, and we've seen development slow to almost a complete stop in Old Town and other parts of the city. And so we have not been doing ourselves any favors in kind of jump-starting our economic activity. And it couldn't be any more important today, really than ever. When you look back in the last few years, our growth, our general fund revenue has been below inflation over the last few years, just at 6.8%. Meanwhile, our costs have gone up over 22%. And so we're starting to pull out of reserves. This was even before COVID. So now that problem is even compounded further. We need the economic development. We need to get the engine that is the Tustin legacy going for us. We're ideally suited to really create a special project, a special opportunity with the hangars, the access to the freeways, as well as the train station. So we have this opportunity, we're not taking advantage of it. So why my background's important and how it differentiates me from the other candidates is I'm a Tustin planning commissioner. I did not vote for inclusionary housing. I wasn't on the commission at that time, so don't blame me. If elected, I'd like to pull that back, if not eliminate it. I'm also a business owner and civil engineer. My entire career is focused on working with public agencies. I've worked with over 20 in Southern California. I understand how public agencies work. And when I look at the city of Tustin, I understand how we got to where we are. The approach we're taking with the Tustin legacy is too much about us handling it. We need to look at opportunities to engage our development partners, break off pieces, expedite through use of master developers. We had a similar strategy at the beginning. It didn't work, but I think it's time to revisit that. I think there's ways to do that correctly in partnership with your membership. And then finally, you know, husband and a father, so I understand a lot of the safety and security issues that we touched on kind of briefly here. But I really think the main driver for the city of Tustin to really change our directory is going to be getting people on council that understand the issues that are facing us and how to correct them. And I think my expertise provides me that opportunity.
Ryan, thank you very much. So how many opponents do you have?
Opponents? Well, I don't consider George an opponent. I think we are on the same page as far as what needs to be done at the city.
There you go.
There are 9 candidates running. It is a highly competitive race. And a lot of the candidates that are running have different ideas of what's going to happen at the Tustin Legacy. From what I understand, there's been open discussions about using project labor agreements, which, Steve, to your point, would bring in prevailing wage. The city owns that property, so they have the right to negotiate how they choose on that. I think that would be detrimental to the value that we could deliver to our residents, and I'm completely against that. So there's a lot of these types of things floating out there with the other candidates.
Excellent. Ryan, thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is George Valdez from the city of Tustin. George, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for allowing me to be here, everybody. Thank you to the BIA for inviting me. Ladies and gentlemen, I am a business owner. I am an attorney. I have been sworn in as a judge pro tem at the Workers' Compensation Appeals Courts. I have been a charity board president for 2 years. Prior to that, I was a general board member. I am a Tustin homeowner and father of 4. I am running because I want to make Tustin better. Several neighbors of mine came to me early on in January and asked me to do this. We had a special situation in Tustin where we had a homeless shelter that was proposed right next to our elementary school. And last November, this community was up in arms. And my neighbors came to me and said, George, you're the political guy. You know, if you ran, you know, we wouldn't have to deal with those types of things any longer. And so it was sort of a mixed bag of why I decided to do this. I also turned 50 and have always said to myself I was going to do this. So that's why I'm running. My platforms are pretty straightforward. Okay, my first and foremost is maintaining Tustin as and the public safety that we have here. I very early on had a meeting with Stu Greenberg, our police chief. He's been asking for new officers for years. I have pledged 5 new police officers in my first year of office. And to Mr. McLaughlin's point that he made earlier, I'm open to discussing how we use our officers, but defunding the police is simply not going to happen with me. If someone wants to do that, I'm not your candidate. I want to spur Tustin's business development. It is clearly lagging. I spent one Saturday 7 or 8 hours walking the downtown area and have been told repeatedly by several business owners that we're just dying on the vine down there. And we could be much closer to orange if we turn things around. And I think I'm the right person to do that. As far as union development, I will not support unions with respect to our private developments. I will not support rent control. I will do everything I can to eradicate the inclusionary zoning ordinance. Certainly if Austin Lombard, who's already our council member, and Ryan and myself are elected, that will be what I will push my colleagues to do. I want to use private developers and their staff and their money and their resources to create a plan for the legacy as opposed to our city staff, which quite frankly, I just don't think has the skill set to create a 21st century plan for our city. As far as my campaign, currently I believe I'm well funded. I believe I'm going to be the top vote getter in this race because I'm supposed to draw from a certain category of voters, but I'm also going to draw from Latino voters. Tustin is a 22% Latino voter town, and I have a full and breathtaking plan for my campaign, which includes paid walkers. So not only myself, but I will be actively walking I call it the Walnut Corridor of town, where we have 22% of our voting public is there. So I will be courting them very actively as a Latino candidate. As far as helping out our residents, I would really like to see a plan, which I have called Tustin Cares on my website, where I would repurpose staff members to help people find better jobs. Like I said, I think we're not using our staff members in the best way we can for our community. I think we are asking them to do things that are substantially out of their skill set when it comes to planning, and I'd like to repurpose a lot of what they do. So that's me, and if anyone has any questions, I'd love to answer them.
George, thank you very much. I'm guessing that Tustin is not in electoral districts?
Correct. There's no districts here.
I see. Interesting. Okay, well, we don't have any other questions from the crowd, but we really appreciate your comments. And Ty, Mark, and Ryan, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. You are welcome to stick around for the remainder of our meeting if you would like, but I understand that you're busy as well. So Steve, any other comments for our speakers?
Well, I just wanted to go a little bit further with George and Ryan. Again, really talking on this issue of inclusionary zoning and building in the city of Tustin. You guys both you kind of hit it on the head, right? There's a lot of vacant land. I mean, I'm hearing this a lot from, multiple candidates running in various cities, Santa Ana, Tustin, Anaheim, even Huntington Beach, where I'm at. And they're saying the same thing. It's like, why are we staring at vacant parcels amongst, major corridors when we're in the middle of a housing crisis? It just doesn't make a lot of sense. Now, the city of Tustin, and you guys might correct me if I'm wrong, you're probably a little bit more up to date than I am, because it was about 2 years ago when we were doing the inclusionary zoning fight, but we spent a lot of time on it. But it was ultimately focused on two specific plans. I think it's the Red Hill Corridor specific plan and the Downtown Corridor specific plans. It did not go citywide, based on a big ask from us. But I'm not aware of any projects moving forward in those two specific plans. And that's kind of my question to you guys, if you're aware of that. And then again, just, a commitment to really looking at that once you guys are on council. I've spoken to both of you. You guys were, right on point with our issue. So I think this is extremely important. I've been talking about Tustin, even Santa Ana, for quite some time. Is you guys got 3 seats up. You have one incumbent up, and you have 2 open seats, with Chuck and Doc there. 2 very, pro-business candidates. So this is extremely important for the city of Tustin right now when it comes to business in our industry. So you kind of touched on it, so not so much a question, but any other comments on those specific plans or inclusionary zoning would be appreciated. Otherwise, we can go on from there.
Sure,
Steve?
I can.
Go ahead.
Just a quick comment on that. So there's been some developers that have been kind of poking around on some projects, but you're right, nothing has, as far as I know, come through in either of those areas. And I think the issue is more than just the inclusionary housing. I think that's just a problem that we layered on top of our previous issues. I think a lot of good projects are getting stopped early in the process, even before they make it to see the daylight. I know there's great projects that are being discussed along Red Hill that have been kind of shut down and maybe are coming back. And same with Old Town, there's opportunities there, but the city needs to be a partner in that. And that's something that I proposed a benchmarking study to look at the organization between the planning department, economic development group, see at ways that we can streamline how we're interacting with developers, things that we can do to encourage development. In Old Town, we could expand the existing centralized parking to get that obstacle out of the way. So there's a lot of obstacles we can clear internally to bring people back, not just the inclusionary housing. Yeah. So I think that's a big thing. And then one more comment, you mentioned this about the seats being open. This is so critical, I think, to this audience, the fact that these 2 seats are open, because there is the potential that if George and I are elected, we go in one direction, And then there's the opportunity if some other candidates are elected, we go in another direction. This is so critical for a city that has so much at stake and so much opportunity. And I hope that your group understands what's at stake here with the city. I'm sure everyone says that, but literally, 500 plus acres just sitting there vacant, that could be something so special.
Just to follow up with that, I mean, Ryan could not have said it any better. This is really a pivotal election, everyone, in Tustin, not only for Tustin, but all of Orange County and the region. There are 3 seats up, and Tustin could go, in a direction that the vast majority of the people on this Zoom call would not want. If Ryan and I are elected, that's just simply not going to happen. We will move things forward in a very business-friendly way. There's just no question that in addition to the inclusionary zoning, that we did to ourselves, we just haven't had a very business-friendly economic development department downtown. I came to this, in February not knowing that, but boy, has that been made extremely clear to me. That's just been made extremely clear to me over and over and over again by the business community. And I will change that. Ryan and I will change that. I'm very confident of that. So
awesome.
This is an extremely pivotal election, not only for Tustin, but for all of Orange County.
George and Ryan, thank you very much. We really appreciate your time.
Mike, can I just say something?
Of course.
Yeah, I think one of the things that Ty and I didn't bring up in the discussion is that one of the things that we are going to see as a challenge coming into 2021, and that is that after 30 plus years, the city of Santa Ana has basically put together a new general plan. And the goal of the planning department right now is to get that general plan available by the end of this year. It's a daunting challenge by any shape of the way, but I think at this point in time, it's going to change many things that we've been doing, and it will help us by providing a roadmap that should be able to accommodate the housing development that we want to see and the economic development that we desperately need to continue growing. We are having some great companies coming into Santa Ana. Amazon right now is building 2 huge distribution centers in Santa Ana, and we expect to get more economic development going as we speak. But the whole process that we're looking at is that roadmap, and that roadmap is the general plan. And we need to make sure that all of the stakeholders, the developers, and everybody involved with the general plan understand it, know what to expect, and are working towards a goal that we would work towards as council member, and that is to grow the economy and grow the housing development that we have currently in Santa Ana. So the general plan is a key tool that we're really looking forward to. And it's, like I said, it's over 30 years that we've updated that general plan.
Excellent. And I know a lot of people are really looking forward to that. And thank you for your good efforts on the Planning Commission to move that forward, as well as the Good City.
Yeah, we're gonna review that. It'll be part of our workshop on Monday this coming week. So we're going to be reviewing that. And yes, it is a huge milestone for the city of Santa Ana.
Excellent. Okay, Steve, do you have any other questions for the candidates?
No, that's it. Thank you, everybody. Again, you're welcome to hang on. We actually have Victor Cow with the California Apartment Association up next to talk a little bit on Proposition 21, the rent control initiative. So please hang on if you'd like to. Please mute if you can. But that's all the questions I have. I really appreciate you guys.
Thanks, everybody. Victor, great to see you.
Hey, good to see you, Mike. It's good to be back and seeing all former colleagues. For some of the other attendees on the call, I previously worked at the Building Industry Association Orange County chapter. I left in 2014 and then went to go work at the Orange County Board of Supervisors. So it's good to be with a familiar crowd. I'm here to present on Proposition 21, which is a rent control ballot initiative. I'm going to share my screen. So this is the campaign, the No on Prop 21 campaign. What is Proposition 21? What does it actually do? It revises the Costa-Hawkins Act, which has been law since 1995, for a very long time here in the state of California. Again, there are, I think, this industry knows rent control better than pretty much any other industry, in that it doesn't work. You look at some of the most cost burdened communities where there is the highest income disparities, places like Santa Monica, even LA, New York, rent control doesn't work. It's universally agreed upon by economists that it doesn't work. It was promoted essentially in the 1950s and under similar circumstances, which there was a large housing crisis after World War II. There was a large housing shortage. And yes, the federal government looked into ways to provide housing for, servicemen who've come back from the war. While it did provide some sense of relief, what spurred more economic growth and opportunity was housing production, which is why we have beautiful communities that have great quality of life today, like Orange County. As part of our coalition, we have a large cross-section of senior veterans, affordable housing advocates, business, labor, and social justice organizations. For example, the chair of the California State Conference of the NAACP submitted the ballot arguments opposing Proposition 21. Likewise, there are local government groups such as the Association of California Cities, Orange County, who likewise oppose Proposition 21. Traditional business groups like Orange County Business Council, again, in opposition. There's a large cross-section. We have a large coalition. The question is this pretty familiar to you all? And the answer is yes, because this was voted on back in 2018. That was defeated by nearly 20 points, probably one of the largest defeats in California history. And the question is, why are we voting on this again? The answer to that is that, fortunately, it's a sad answer, which is you have someone who is looking at a political agenda. This is the CEO of AIDS Healthcare Foundation. His organization receives roughly $2 billion in government subsidies, and he uses that money for special political purposes. The IRS essentially, there are rough guidelines in which you can spend no more than 5% of your revenue for political purposes or lobbying, in which Michael Weinstein and the AIDS Healthcare Foundation are under investigation by the FPPC, the Attorney General. The AIDS Healthcare Foundation also happens to own apartments, and the LA Times did an investigation in which they found that Mr. Weinstein is a slumlord. So it's widely known that the AIDS Healthcare Foundation really has no nexus to housing, and if anything, they do a bad job at it. Essentially, this was pushed back in 2018, and they lost. I don't know if they've heard the message, but it's likely that voters are not going to vote for it again. In Orange County, that delta was even higher. Roughly 65% of voters voted against Proposition 21. And again, going through the points of why Proposition 21 is bad for California, it will erode affordable and middle class housing. What incentive is there to construct new housing if you know that you're never going to pencil out? That is the predicament that's put in front of not only the development community, but also government agencies who are juxtaposing their loss of sales tax revenue during the pandemic and are heavily reliant on residential property taxes. Likewise, the proposition as written has no oversight. And while they claim to exempt single-family homes, I can show you why it actually eliminates homeowner protections. And the other argument is that you can't change this without, if it does pass, is that you can't modify it in order to make it better. There's a large hurdle to pass, which is either 2/3 of the legislative body or another statewide initiative. In 2018, it was roughly that campaign, both for and against, was roughly $100 million, give or take a couple $1,000,000. You're going to have several ballot initiatives that will be over $100 million this cycle. Proposition 15, Proposition 21, the AB5 ballot proposition, bail bonds. And the question is, are we putting all this money to poor uses, in which all of that political spending on something that was already answered could actually be used for promoting housing? And unfortunately, it's not. Again, some details of Proposition 21. I'll take the perspective of, for example, a progressive who believes in, let's say you believe in rent control, right? Well, what this proposition does is contradictory to that point, at least within its first year. As for those advocates that are promoting rent control, this bill allows for a 15% adjustment within the first year. So what it essentially means is that every landlord across the state of California, this passes, they're going to try to get to their highest and best use for that property, because otherwise they're going to be behind continually. And so within that immediate year, you're automatically going to get a 15% increase in rents across the board. And that's just not untenable. Today, we have statewide rent control known as AB 1482, and it limits the increases to 5% plus CPI. And in many places across the state, CPI is 0. And rents are going down. So there's no need for a redundant ballot initiative. If anything, makes it worse, especially if you come from that ideology, which promotes rent control. It's a straight contradiction in what their purpose is. Secondly, again, our industry, both the apartment industry and development industry, understands that this discourages new construction. There's no incentive to build a new product, whatever it is, whether you're building cars or houses or something else, where you're not going to get a return on investment. It just doesn't make sense. And the people that are going to be hurt by this the most are mom and pop landlords who, at the California Apartment Association, they represent over 60% of our members. So that being said, is that, back in 2000 and after 2008, there was a lot of consolidation that was occurring within the rental housing industry. That is even more exacerbated by this ballot initiative. So moving on, I have 3 more slides. Where this hurts single-family homes is that essentially it does touch single-family homes. For many residents, especially here in Orange County, your home is a source of wealth and economic mobility, and more so, it is designed for generational wealth, something that you can pass on to your children and their children, and that's where you get upward mobility throughout generation. And oftentimes, those families put their assets in a family trust. The examination by LAO, Legislative Analyst's Office, as well as the Attorney General, has deemed that the provisions in Prop 21 essentially would apply to family trusts. So if you have a family trust and at some point you decide to rent out your home, either because you're in between homes or for whatever reason, you want to, again, generate another source of income for your family, or you're going to retire and you're using that home as retirement income, that property is subject to rent control under Proposition 21. And it's very unfortunate. And for the folks that are running for office who are on the call, for those that are considering, being in office, balancing a budget, and now considering the economic impacts of the pandemic, you're going to have to think about how to pencil out a city budget. And unfortunately, the economic impacts of rent control is essentially it reduces state and local revenues. And this is determined by an impartial, independent analysis by the Legislative Analyst's Office. There is significant, we've had Ryan Gallagher from Tustin, a candidate, talk about how your liabilities have significantly increased and your revenue sources haven't kept up with inflation. That is further exacerbated through the analysis of the LAO's office, and essentially increases local government costs up to tens of millions of dollars per year. So what are you going to do to offset that? And so in summary, that is the No on Proposition 21 campaign. We love for individuals as well as organizations to sign up, just be informed of the issues. And you can go to noonprop21.vote. That is a domain name. Just put that into your browser and you can visit our site. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Victor, thank you so much. I'm not seeing any questions from the group. I thought your presentation was really good and inclusive of, I think, everyone's interests. Steve, any questions from you?
I don't. I just appreciate, Victor, you jumping on and giving us that presentation. I say it kind of all the time, but rent control, big issue, obviously, for the apartment association. Inclusionary zoning is sort of our version of rent control. These are really our really top two issues. We have a lot of multifamily members as well. So this is, to an extent, just as important to us over here at the BIA. And Victor, unless there's any questions from our panelists, I see some of you still on. We appreciate it.
Steve.
Oh yeah, Mark.
Steve, Mark, yeah. Victor, one question, I think you might have covered it in the last statement you made, but I think one of the things that is overlooked with respect to rent control is that not only is there lost revenue to the city, but there's a cost to the city because the city now has to set up an organization that supports rent control and the different aspects of tenant rights and landlord rights. Because I own property in San Francisco, and it's under rent control. And I know that there's a significant organization that's part of the city of San Francisco that supports this activity. And I think that's a cost that's overlooked by a lot of people when it comes to rent control, is that there is an infrastructure that has to be put in place and there's a cost to that infrastructure. Do you agree on that, Victor?
Yeah, there is a cost to the infrastructure. That's what we alluded to in my last point, is that essentially you have a rent control board. And there was an initiative that was being proposed in Santa Ana, and within the ordinance, and it's on page like 60 out of 85 pages, it's just tucked in there. Essentially, it's that they would receive a stipend of $600 per meeting. And I don't know if any other planning commission or if any other commission within the city of Santa Ana receives a stipend as significant as that. And that's where your cost comes from. The other rent control boards tried to offset that cost by charging, again, a fee to landlords. But you're only exacerbating the problem, especially for mom and pop owners. So it becomes a very difficult prospect for not only local government to handle, because you're looking at cost recovery and you're trying to right size that, but you're also killing your golden goose, which is mom and pop owners, property owners in your city. They're your taxpayers.
Well, just for the record, Victor, Ty and I get $47.92 a meeting.
Mark, it sounds like you're running for the wrong seat.
Thanks. If I had known this, I would have changed. But yeah, you're absolutely right.
Victor,
right.
thank you very much. We really appreciate it. Steve, we have a few questions here, but I think we have to move on because I know you have some important issues, and my job is to get everyone out of here. So if you want to take it away.
Well, thank you. Yeah, goal is to get everyone out of here at 1 o'clock, which is fine. I got some great news coming out of Santa Ana last night. I've talked about this a lot. We talked about it a little bit today, but after give or take roughly 4 months, the city did move forward with the first hearing and reduce the inclusionary zoning fee from $15 a square foot down to $5 a square foot. So roughly a 66% decrease in their inclusionary zoning fee. When this first started, actually, if you can almost take it back a couple years ago with Adam Wood working with the city, there was a lot of discussion on trying to just get rid of the fee or just look at the fee. It was required to come back for analysis, I believe, every couple years. Again, we've talked about this. After the increase, no one has pulled a permit to build under this fee. And so there was no affordable housing money coming in. There was no new units, even market rate. On top of all of this, the city has met their RHNA requirements for this current cycle. And so a committee was created. No real recommendations came out of that committee. One of the council members was recalled. So an ad hoc committee was created with the mayor, council member Becerra, and the new council member Nolita Mendoza to come up with recommendations. Those recommendations were good recommendations. It came out as $5 a square foot for projects. However, they were recommending $10 a square foot for projects that were in the pipeline, meaning they were approved, but they just have not yet pulled a permit. So on top of that, to get that $10, they were required to pull those permits by April of 2021. Those are the recommendations of the ad hoc committee. The BIA, as well as pretty much every business association, I think most of you have probably seen our letter because I did send it out to this group. We were asking for a $5 across the board fee for projects in the pipeline and projects that have not yet been proposed, as well as a year to pull these permits. And so last night, again, I think it didn't even start till really 11:30. Lot of discussion. I mean, probably 20 plus affordable housing advocates called in. The union and skilled labor groups were calling in because they were looking to get mandatory skilled labor language put into this policy, meaning if you were going to utilize this fee, you were, to an extent, is how we were kind of understanding it. It was kind of confusing, but you would be required to use a skilled labor force, which obviously was a non-starter with us, a big problem. No matter how much you reduce that fee, that would, to an extent, kill projects in the city. Again, last night it was proposed for, like I said, the $5 across the board. That did gain steam. It brought around the ad hoc committee members based on, in our opinion, the developers that called in, the BIA arguments, to the fact that if no one builds, no one benefits. The affordable housing people will now see money start to come in. Developments that were stuck in the pipeline, so close to construction, will now move forward. Unions, skilled labor, they will get jobs from this policy moving forward. There were projects in the pipeline that were using union labor, not based on a mandatory policy. And so that was really just a non-starter with the council. It was voted against by Council Member Vince Sarmiento and Council Member Nolita Mendoza. Council Member Mendoza did push pretty significantly for a mandatory skilled labor. Vince Sarmiento did sort of argue again for really the affordable housing side of this equation, which again doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And I'm not going to put words in anyone's mouth because there was no money coming in. So this was a first hearing. You have seen emails from me stating that we do need to remain engaged on this issue. There still will be a second hearing coming up. I do want to, I think I see city council members even on this call, and I do want to thank even you guys over there at the Planning Commission. I know this was a big lift that came to you guys, and you did take the ad hoc committee recommendations and move it forward, and I appreciate you guys understanding this issue and how significant it is. We could possibly see, again, thousands and thousands of units move forward because of the 66% reduction of this fee, which literally equates to millions and millions of dollars on these projects. And hopefully see a lot of activity coming as you guys work on your general plan update. So that is my update in Santa Ana. Like I said, we still have to remain vigilant on this. I'm over on time, but I did want to direct everyone's attention to the candidate tracker that I sent out recently before this meeting. I want to thank Kurt Pringle and Associates for that tracker. We're a little shorter staff here at the BIA, so we do lean on our members a lot. And now that filing has closed, we can start assessing our candidates. We will have a questionnaire, for these candidates on the call. You will be getting that from me. If you are looking for BIA support, we don't really endorse, but we do support. And we would definitely appreciate you guys filling out that questionnaire. But a couple cities that really need to be looked at, if you look at this tracker, Anaheim, for example, you have Councilmember Steve Fessel, you have Denise Barnes up for election, and you have Lucille Kring termed out. And so I think, I won't really get into, who we think will win, but this becomes we want to protect our incumbents like Steve Fessel. And I did recently speak to a candidate in Denise Barnes's district, Jose Diaz, I believe it is, for District 1. He gets it. I'm going to try to get him on one of these calls here soon, but he understands it. He came over here on a boat from Cuba. He's worked his way up, the great, American story. He lives near Beach Boulevard in the city of Anaheim. And he's like, why the heck are we staring at a street that nothing's being done on? We need to see some development. He's a get out of the way, government type guy when it comes to development. And I'm extremely encouraged with the comments from our discussion. And so that is someone to watch there in District 1. And then in Lucille Kring's district, several candidates, Evelina Valencia, Anne Marie, I think it's Rundell Trejo, Julie Burnett, Janine Robbins. Evelina Valencia is a Assemblyman Tom Daly staff member that we're hearing good things about. So I will, let people obviously research for themselves, and you will ultimately see who we support and who we would like you to either engage with or vote for if you're in those cities. Ultimately in our candidate tracker that will go out eventually in terms of who we not so much want to endorse, but who we like for these races. And two quick other issues is the city of Irvine. Lots of candidates. You'll see some names you probably recognize. Larry Agron is back. I think he was roughly 20 years on council over a certain amount of times. I could totally be wrong on that, but I know it was a lot of years. You have Councilmember Farah Khan running for mayor against Christina Shea. So if Farah wins, that will free up another seat. Melissa Fox is obviously not running for city council because she's running for assembly. And you have Mike Carroll, an incumbent who was appointed from Planning Commission to fill when Don Wagner came over to the Board of Supervisors to fill that seat. So again, a lot of seats open. You could possibly, and with multiple candidates, and we're seeing similar candidates as we have in the past. Carrie O'Malley, Lauren Norris Johnson. You have sort of a Team Irvine dynamic, which is Lauren Norris Johnson, Melissa Fox, and I'm blanking on the last name. I think it is Tammy Kim on this Team Irvine slate, if you will. But again, another major city to watch, and we'll have more on that here in the near future. And then lastly, I'll just kind of touch on another important city with a lot of seats up, and I got to sit here and try to find it in my tracker. But the city of Huntington Beach, recently we've seen two incumbents not look to seek re-election. You have Mayor Lynn Sameta, who just recently decided not to run again, and you have Councilmember Patrick Brendan, a candidate that the BI was wholeheartedly in support of. I actually walked precincts for him, I believe 4 years ago now, who decided not to run for election. On top of that, you have Jill Hardy, council member, termed out. So you literally have 3 open seats. Some unfamiliar names like Tito Ortiz and Matthew Harper have jumped into the race. And you were having kind of this similar candidates in the past, Planning Commissioner Dan Kalmick as well, and some other very familiar faces that you can look. I'm having troubles finding it here on my tracker, but like I said, I did send that out. So I do encourage everyone to go through it. And yeah, actually here it is right here. And so, yeah, like I said, Dan Kalmick, UFC fighter Tito Ortiz, Assemblyman Matt Harper, two big names. Dan Kalmick, while on Planning Commission, was not anywhere near the top 4 at this last election cycle. But he is he's a friend and someone definitely that I think is to an extent pretty good on some of our issues, and not so much on some others. But either way, a lot to look out for. Mike, that's my update for today. Took you a little bit over there on time, but I hope it was informative, and please check out that candidate tracker I sent out.
Steve, thank you very much, and we appreciate you all attending, and we'll look forward to next month. Thanks again to our speakers, and have a great day and a great weekend coming up. Take care.
Thanks all. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you. See you guys. See you time.